The way I tried to tell the story musically was using leitmotifs. Now leitmotifs are like a little musical phrase or theme that is used to represent an emotion, a feeling, or a person. Anything really that consistently represents them all the way through. It was important to use leitmotifs on instrumentation to represent characters because in the piece, none of our characters have names. They are called the dentist, the old man, the charity girl, because it was important to me when telling the story that they could be a bit of a blank canvas for everybody else's lives. The story itself talks about common issues that affect a lot of people, and it was important for me to not specify that to one character and let it be a bit more open. And the leitmotifs do something similar. They represent an open emotion and an idea of an emotion and not necessarily one person's specific experience. You'll have to forgive me if any of this comes across as a little pretentious. I'm going to be laying on the arty-farty pretty thick today. Oh, what's he doing? So let's introduce you to some of the themes that run throughout the show. I'm going to start off with the main one. It's like the heartbeat almost of the show. And I call it the loneliness motif. It's pretty much always heard when a character is either by themselves or feeling pretty alone. And it's obviously the more melancholy emotional aspect of the piece. And it goes something like this. So this crotchet beat runs almost all the way through, even with the less melancholic moments. There's sometimes with the daily grind and the more frantic moments, even with the opening number like we heard earlier, that it's still hidden there. It's just that we don't hear it to quite the same degree. So yeah, that is the loneliness motif, and it pretty much pervades a lot of what the characters are struggling with. They put themselves in positions, or they've found themselves in positions which have left them feeling quite alone. So that is one motif. Now let's contrast that with another, which is what I call the hope motif. The hope motif is used several times all the way through, again on a similar notion when the characters are feeling hopeful, ridiculous thing to say, and that goes something like this. So there's one piece in particular that I want to show you that kind of contrasts these two emotional states really well. It's side by side. It's a big song that starts off on a very small intimate level, and it's basically the battle between those two feelings: the feeling of isolation and loneliness, and the feeling of hope for the future. So this is Chloe. Chloe plays the charity girl in the film, and she is also my legend of a sister. So it's her character that opens side by side, and that's because her character is predominantly affected by the conflict of hope and loneliness. And so when she goes into the song, she's putting her sister to bed, and she sees the things that she struggled with in her life are starting to affect her younger sister, and that makes her really upset. So this is side by side. before I carry on and play the rest of the song, there is another theme that I want to introduce you to, and that is the kind of empowering theme. And that theme runs at several moments when people are feeling particularly boisterous and after change, and it goes, "Everyone deserves to feel they matter to you. Everyone deserves a bit of time," and so on. And this theme, like I say, is the call to change for the characters, really. Now, before I play the rest of Side by Side, the reason why I wanted to clarify this is that in musical theatre, this is kind of what we would call an 11 o'clock number. Each character begins to get involved with the song and sings that and says that effectively they are done with succumbing to their problems, that they want to change things. It's the big kind of hoo-ha before the last sequence in the film. So we've learnt those three themes. Now we have the loneliness theme, contrasted with the hope theme, contrasted with the I'm going to change things theme. And let's see how those combine with one another at the end of the song.
When you're all alone and that person beside you has left you in shadow, there's a constant reminder that she's no longer there. She's left you high and dry. So turn the corner, make a change, step up, approach the firing range. It's time to take the bullet and make that leap of faith.
Everyone deserves to feel they matter to you. Everyone deserves a taste of life. Now I know that all I need is a change of pace,
Just something different.
something new, something
Not chase a love that's non-existent.
How could I have waited all this time?
Excuse me. Excuse me.
So, the musical theatre literate out there will probably realise that Side by Side is a bit of a nod to a very, very famous musical theatre composer, one of my favourites, called Stephen Sondheim. And I just wanted to take a moment to say that the reason for this is Company, his show, basically inspired this show. Company was one of the first, I'd argue, like realistic takes on how people and relationships work. Whereas before it had been, we're going to bicker until we get married at the end in many cases. Sondheim looked at the joys and the pitfalls of being single or being married, and the complications of making a life with another individual. And that, as you can imagine, was something that really inspired me and influenced me going into this piece. So I wanted to have a bit of a nod towards the master himself. Hence, you'll notice the title and the melody are a bit of a nod to Stephen Sondheim, the legend. Now I want to introduce you to the overarching theme of the show. So we've discussed that the film and the show is basically about characters seeking redemption or forgiveness or something new. And that is represented in the show by a four-note leitmotif that is the building blocks for basically every song in the show. And this melody is pretty much always heard in the accompaniment or instrumentals as a kind of like emotional crux, and never really sung by the characters as their own main theme. And by that I mean the actual da-da-da-da form. But it makes up all of our characters' own individual themes. To give you a flavour on how that manifests, how that is, you hear it in Hope theme. Honestly, it is a theme that runs just everywhere. It's slightly lazy on my part, but it also connects. The emotional through lines of the song towards a goal of redemption, towards a goal of forgiveness, and that's kind of important when dealing with such kind of heavy topics. But throughout the film, whenever this theme is used, whether it be on the oboe for the dentist, the clarinet for the charity girl, flute for the coffee woman, synth, wherever it's always used to represent an opportunity for forgiveness. So again, it's all about that subtext. It's just sitting under the scene. The characters can't hear it. It's just this is their chance to find the forgiveness or redemption that they are looking for, whether they take it or not.